Hi, I'm Lorraine. And a week ago, my parents texted me, "Stay back and watch your sister's kid." No warning, no conversation, just that. Then they boarded the flight I booked, stayed in the suite I paid for, dined under my name. But that wasn't the worst part. It was realizing I was never supposed to be part of the picture, that I wasn't the guest. They made me the help. Why did they replace me so easily? And why did it take me this long to see it? The house was quiet, almost too quiet for a morning when I should have been buzzing with excitement. I had spent weeks planning our family's anniversary trip to Napa Valley. Every detail, every reservation, each little surprise had been crafted with care. I didn't just book a trip, I curated an experience, the kind that might finally pull us all into the same rhythm again. I had just zipped up my suitcase when the chime of a text broke the silence. "Stay back and watch Callista's son. She needs rest. We're flying out first with her." No, please, no explanation, just a flat message from my mother, Vera. 8 words that rewrote the entire story in less than 2 seconds. At first, I thought it was a joke, some glitch in the group thread, a message sent out of order. But as I scrolled, nothing followed. No clarification. Just that. I stood frozen beside the hallway mirror, rereading the text like it might morph into something kinder the second time around. But it stayed the same. I wasn't invited. I was reassigned. Not a guest on the trip I paid for, but a babysitter, off-screen, off-plan. I stared at my phone for what felt like a full minute before I even blinked. A whole vineyard tour booked, hotel upgrades arranged, a dinner reservation at the very restaurant my parents had visited on their honeymoon. Every cent covered by me. And now, I was expected to stay home and watch a 4-year-old who screamed at blueberries and called me not mom. I sat down on the edge of my bed, trying to catch my breath, trying not to spiral into that dark corner of my mind I'd boarded up years ago. But the second text came in like a tap on that very door. "Your sister's going through a lot. Hope you can be understanding." Of course. Callista, the one who always had a lot going on. She had a lot going on when she borrowed my car and brought it back with a dent. A lot going on when she forgot to repay the money I lent her for rent. And apparently, now she had enough going on to take my seat on the trip I organized. I could almost hear my mother's voice in my head, calm and passive. "You're the strong one, honey. She's fragile. It's just easier this way." And just like that, the years began to fold into each other. I remembered being 12, soaked after swim practice, waiting on the school steps because they picked up Callista first. Always Callista first. I remembered handing over my birthday gift money so she could afford a prom dress that wasn't embarrassing. I remembered holidays where I cooked, cleaned, and then disappeared from the photos because I was always behind the camera. But this wasn't just a pattern. This was precision, a quiet cut. I stood up and went to my desk, opening the travel folder I'd kept so meticulously organized. Flight confirmations, hotel receipts, rental car contracts, all of it under my name. Or so I thought. I checked the airline app. My reservation didn't show. I opened my email. Nothing. No flight update. No booking notification. Just an empty inbox and a sinking feeling. Something wasn't adding up. Had they changed the primary contact? Shifted the reservation? Deleted my details? I started taking screenshots. Everything I could find. Receipts, itineraries, timestamps. I wasn't even sure why, except that some part of me needed proof that I hadn't imagined any of it, that I had been a part of this before they erased me. I knew my mother. I knew Callista. They didn't scream or slam doors. They edited. Quietly, strategically. And the worst part? They did it with a smile. By afternoon, I still hadn't heard from anyone else. No calls, no follow-up. So I did what most emotionally functional adults do when their family slices them out of a dream they built. I opened Instagram to numb the sting. That's when I saw it. Callista had posted a story. A boomerang of her clinking coffee cups with Vera, both of them at the airport, laughing. The caption read, Trip prep with the fam. Can't wait for Napa. There was no mention of me, not even a tag. Just Vera. Just Callista. I tapped the screen, letting the clip loop. It was only 5 seconds long, but it told me everything I needed to know. They didn't forget me. They didn't overlook me. They just replaced me. And it was easy. After seeing the airport post, I didn't move for a long time. Just stared at the loop of my mother and sister toasting coffee cups like they hadn't just carved me out of something I built from the ground up. The light outside had shifted slightly when I finally stood up, my phone still in hand. Heart steady now, strangely numb. I walked to the kitchen and refilled my mug, not because I needed more coffee, but because I needed something normal to hold, something warm. That first text had felt like a gut punch. The post? That was salt rubbed into it. Back in my living room, I sat at the small table I used as a desk and opened my laptop. The travel app still had my name in the login field. That had to count for something, right? It didn't. The main dashboard no longer listed the itinerary I'd built. No Napa trip, no guest list. The section labeled upcoming trips was blank, like I'd imagined the whole thing. I refreshed the screen, still nothing. I clicked into archived reservations. There it was, Napa Family Retreat. But the details had changed. Beneath the header was a single line. Group, 3 adults, 1 child. 3 adults, 1 child, not 5. I hovered my cursor over the info icon, but it didn't expand like it used to. Every link was disabled. Funny. I could have sworn it used to say 5. I checked my email, digging through folders, trying every keyword I could think of. Not a single booking confirmation remained. The original messages were gone. It was like someone had reached into my inbox and plucked out every receipt with my name on it. I stared at the empty screen, jaw clenched. Then something clicked. Months ago, I had sent Callista the login details when she couldn't find the itinerary in her own account. She said she just wanted to check the vineyard dates. That was it. And like an idiot, I believed her. I called the airline's customer service number and input the group reservation code. An automated voice greeted me. "We're sorry, no matching reservation found under this name." That was when I stopped trying to make sense of it and started accepting what I knew. I wasn't on that trip, not anymore. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anything, but there it was on the front step, a small box from a gift delivery service, neatly wrapped with a ribbon and a card. For Lorraine, with gratitude, Callista and Mom. I stood holding the box in my hands, unsure if I should laugh or slam the thing straight into the recycling bin. Inside was a travel pouch, pale blue leather. The same one I had casually admired weeks ago while we browsed online during a call. I had said something like, "If I ever go on a real vacation, I'd love something simple like this." Callista had smirked and said, "It's cute, I guess. Looks like something a flight attendant would carry." And now here it was, packaged as a token of thanks. For what exactly? For stepping aside? For funding their wine country escape while I stayed back and babysat? I dropped the pouch onto the counter like it was suddenly too heavy. That wasn't a gift. It was a gold-plated participation trophy for a game I wasn't even allowed to play. The card called it thoughtful. I called it a soft slap to the face. Sitting back down, I opened my planner and flipped to the trip section. My handwriting was everywhere. Dates, notes, restaurant ratings, even color-coded tabs. All of it done with the kind of care you give to people you love. I picked up a pen and started circling things, not to highlight them anymore, but to document, to keep score. If they wanted to pretend this trip materialized from thin air, fine. I would remind myself that I built it. I started jotting down patterns, things I had brushed off before. The short replies in the group chat, the silence after I confirmed the dinner location, the way my mother never responded to questions about seating or allergies, even though she always had input on those things. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't oversight. It was strategy. They hadn't just removed me. They'd done it gradually, cleanly, like fading a person out of a photograph until all that's left is a blur where they once stood. I glanced at my phone, half expecting a call. Nothing. Instead, a notification blinked at the top of the screen. Instagram. Callista added a new story. I tapped it without thinking. The video was grainy, filmed too close to her face, and filled with the usual chaotic energy she liked to call charm. Packing chaos? She laughed, flipping the camera to show suitcases, wine boxes, a pair of boots, a scarf. Hope Napa's ready for this crew. But something in the frame stopped me cold. Near the edge of the shot, sitting by the hallway, my hallway, was a suitcase. Navy with a frayed leather handle. My suitcase. The one that had been in my closet. Packed. Ready. And now it was going somewhere I wasn't. I didn't even remember walking back to my desk. I must have floated there, like my body moved ahead of my thoughts, dragging my heart behind. The afternoon light had faded by the time I found myself sitting with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, surrounded by a sea of printed confirmations, receipts, and itinerary drafts. The wine bottle I'd set aside for the trip sat uncorked beside my laptop. I didn't even bother with a glass. I stared at the screen, then the papers, then back at the screen. It felt less like looking at travel plans and more like reviewing evidence at a trial where I already knew the verdict. I was out, not by accident, not as a glitch, but surgically removed, clean, quiet, complete. I picked up the file folder with the itinerary. I had color-coded everything: flights, activities, meals, notes in the margins, weather estimates, allergy info. There was a sticky note at the bottom of the first page that said, "Ask if Mom still prefers dry reds." I hadn't just planned a vacation. I had engineered an experience, a curated sequence of joy, nostalgia, and meaning. And now I was a footnote, a ghost. I reached for the restaurant confirmation next, the fancy one I'd booked in Yountville, the one they mentioned once in passing during a Christmas dinner 4 years ago. It would be so special to go back there someday, Mom had said, with that far-off look she reserved for memories that still had teeth. And I remembered. Of course I did. But when I opened the attached PDF, I nearly dropped my laptop. Custom Family Menu, hosted by Callista H. There it was, right at the bottom of the page. In bold. The menu was exactly what I selected, down to the pan-seared duck breast and the pear gorgonzola salad. But the name on the file wasn't mine. It had been overwritten. She hadn't just taken the table. She'd taken credit for choosing the silverware. I dug through my inbox. I remembered calling the restaurant and speaking to a woman named Alana. I'd told her it was a surprise for my parents. "Don't tell them it's from me," I'd said. "Just let it feel like something magical happened." Apparently, it did. Just for someone else. "You can't steal a chair at a table I built and call yourself generous," I whispered into the empty room. I moved to the next stack, documents I'd uploaded to the family's shared drive. There, tucked neatly in the Trip Extras folder, was a Word doc titled Anniversary Toast Draft. I opened it, recognizing the first few lines instantly. It was my draft. The one I'd written weeks ago when I imagined standing beside them at the vineyard dinner, holding a glass of champagne, talking about how love looked different through the eyes of a daughter who still believed in it. Except the file had been edited. The final version now read, "Thank you to my sister Callista for making this all happen. Her heart, her effort, and her vision gave us this unforgettable moment." My name was nowhere in it. Not even a whisper. They didn't just forget me. They didn't even skip me. They rewrote the whole damn chapter. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. I wasn't sure what I felt anymore. Anger? Not quite. Heartbreak? Maybe once. No. This was something else. Something colder, sharper, controlled. I poured the wine into a mug and opened a new folder on my desktop, labeled it Backup Personal. I started moving everything over. Screenshots, bookings, emails, before they deleted more. If they wanted to pretend I hadn't existed in this trip, fine. But I'd hold the master files. Memory management, I muttered. Okay, let's play. I logged into the shared calendar, removed my access and locked it, changed all passwords, archived my name off every platform. I even deleted the Google Doc where the packing list had lived. No more shared anything, no more access. By the time I finished, it was dark out. The only light in the apartment was the glow from my monitor. I sat there, not tired, not energized, just still. Then came the final blow. A new email popped into my inbox. The subject line, Final Napa Schedule for Print. I hesitated, hovered over it, and clicked. It opened as a glossy PDF, styled like a magazine spread. Full-page photos of wine barrels, warm golden sunlight over the valley, a quote from Callista in bold italics, A Trip Planned with Love by Callista. That was the cover. Inside were bios, Callista's introduction, Vera's notes on choosing the right wine for family, a full itinerary, restaurants, hikes, spa day. My handwriting was visible on the original photo of the schedule, but even that had been typed over. They didn't just erase me. They built a new version of the truth. But what they didn't know, what they never counted on, was that I still held the receipts. The knock came just after 9, while I was in the middle of canceling the last hotel dinner upgrade. I didn't even check the peephole. Maybe I should have. But I opened the door, and there was Mom, smiling, a little breathless. And beside her, Callista's son, hugging a worn, stuffed animal like it owed him money. "Hey, sweetie," Mom said too brightly, like we were still pretending everything was fine. "We thought it'd be easier if you started watching him today. We'll Venmo you later, of course." My mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, but nothing came out. "I've got to run," she added quickly, already turning back toward the car. "Callista had some errands. She'll check in later." And just like that, they were gone. No conversation, no coordination, no damn courtesy. I stared at the boy. He looked up at me like he wasn't sure what came next either. I bent down slowly. "Hey there, you want some breakfast?" He nodded, rubbing his eyes. "Do you have the cereal with the chocolate dinosaurs?" I didn't. I had almond granola and some instant oatmeal, and whatever leftovers I could cobble together between one travel cancellation and the next. I made him toast. He refused it. I made him scrambled eggs. He dropped half of it on the rug. Then he asked if he could play games on my phone and cried when I said no. It was still morning. I tried calling Mom. Straight to voicemail. I tried Callista. 3 rings, then nothing. This was not temporary. This was deliberate. I put on a cartoon just to buy myself 10 quiet minutes and stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, watching the screen flicker while he giggled and licked jelly off his fingers. I couldn't get the phrase out of my head. "We'll Venmo you later." That's what you say to a dog walker, not a daughter, not a human being. He eventually fell asleep on the couch, drool trailing onto the cushion I'd just cleaned. I left him there and sat on the hallway floor with my back against the wall, phone in hand. I scrolled aimlessly through my photos, each image a tiny betrayal now. There was the itinerary card I made with watercolor edges, the vineyard sunset I bookmarked, the invoice for a bouquet I ordered with Mom's favorite asters. All of it, planned, paid, and now being enjoyed by someone else while I wiped grape jelly off a child's elbow. When he woke, blinking blearily and clearly disoriented, he looked at me, yawned, and mumbled, "Mommy said you're our helper, like a babysitter." I froze. My body stayed still, but something behind my ribs twisted. That's how I was introduced now. Not Lorraine, not Aunt Lo, just the help. I nodded slowly. "Okay, kiddo, let's get you some juice." I didn't cry. There was no point. Once he was fed and settled again, I sat in silence. Real silence. The kind that doesn't echo, just seeps into your skin. I opened my photo folder again, thumbed through more screenshots. Every booking, every confirmation, every dollar, every moment I had wanted to be remembered for, now had someone else's name stamped over it. I was a bridge to their vacation, I whispered, but bridges don't get to cross themselves. Later that afternoon, While he napped again, mouth wide open, one sock off, I tried calling Mom again. Nothing. I wasn't even surprised when another notification popped up from Instagram. I opened it instinctively. Callista had posted a video from a boutique. She panned across racks of pastel dresses and wide-brimmed hats, Vera giggling in the background. "Trip outfits," she sang, flipping the camera briefly toward herself. And that's when I saw it. Over Vera's arm was a familiar bag, midnight blue with a scratch under the left zipper. My overnight bag. From my closet. Still packed the last time I saw it. I set my phone down on the coffee table, sat back, and just stared at nothing. Turns out, I wasn't just replaced. I was recycled. By the time evening settled in, the kid was finally asleep again, this time on a blanket nest I'd built in the corner of the living room. His fingers still clutched a half-eaten banana, now stuck to his palm like some gummy artifact from a war I hadn't volunteered for. I didn't even try to clean it up. I was done. My kitchen smelled like peanut butter and defeat. While I rinsed the dishes, my thoughts drifted, first to the airline charges I had just canceled, then to the half-finished itinerary I'd archived. None of it mattered anymore. I wiped my hands, dried the counter, and sat down at the dining table, the only surface left in the apartment that hadn't been taken over by crayons or cracker crumbs. I opened my laptop and reflexively checked my email. Again. Some part of me still wanted to believe someone would reach out. Some acknowledgement. A clarification. Maybe even a last-minute apology wrapped in excuses. But instead, at the top of my inbox was a forwarded message. Subject, dinner confirmation, booked under H. From Callista. Of course. I clicked it open, not expecting much, but the attachment stopped me cold. A PDF menu from the restaurant I had booked myself, 3 weeks ago. The one I spent 2 hours on the phone with, customizing every detail, asking about Dad's cholesterol-friendly options, Mom's favorite wine pairings, and even the font on the dessert cards. At the bottom of the welcome page, printed in soft gold letters, "Dinner hosted with love by Callista H." I stared at it. No blinking. No reaction. Not yet. Just the quiet awareness that something had finally cracked in a clean, satisfying way. They stole my vision and left me with the cleanup. Not a single word mentioned me. Not in the email body. Not in the PDF. Not even in the subject line. It wasn't just about being left out anymore. It was about being scrubbed clean, like I'd never existed in the first place. I closed the laptop slowly and walked over to my filing cabinet, pulled out the blue folder marked Trip 40th. Inside was every receipt, airline, hotel, rental car, winery tours, and yes, the dinner deposit. All under my name, all charged to my account. I returned to my desk and logged into my credit card portal. After a pause, I selected the travel card I'd designated for this trip, the one I gave them all access to, because I was trying to be accommodating, generous, trusting. I disabled it with one click. No message, no call, no explanation. When people treat your silence like consent, your actions become the loudest thing you'll ever say. I moved to the travel portal, canceled the last remaining confirmation under my account, set the automatic payment emails to redirect to a separate folder. Then I renamed every shared Google Doc with a single word. Archived. I didn't feel triumphant. Not exactly. More like steadied. Like pulling back control one quiet action at a time. I poured myself a glass of wine. Not the celebration bottle I'd been saving, just a dry red from the grocery store, and sat back down. I watched the notifications start to slow, emails from booking services fading out, calendar invites disappearing. Even the shared Spotify playlist for the drive had gone quiet. I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. The house was still. The kind of still that comes after a storm when the wind has finally given up. Then, right before I closed my laptop, my phone buzzed. A call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. 10 seconds later, a text arrived. "Hey, it's Brian. Mom said the card's not working. Can you check?" I stared at it. Just stared. And then I smiled. I woke up earlier than I wanted to. Earlier than I needed to. Something in my body refused to let me sleep in, as if it knew that today, the day they were supposed to fly to Napa, wasn't just about missing out anymore. It was about watching the consequences land exactly where they belonged. I didn't check my messages right away. I moved through my morning like I had no reason to rush, brewed a fresh pot of coffee, watered the 2 succulents I hadn't killed yet, stepped out onto the small balcony just off my kitchen and let the crisp air settle on my skin. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel petty. I just felt steady. Sometimes the loudest scream is silence laced with finality. My phone sat face down on the table. I let it sit there. Whatever chaos was unfolding, I wasn't going to chase it. At the Napa airport, I imagined Vera stepping up to the kiosk, her heels clicking on the polished floor, holding out the printed itinerary with that warm, rehearsed smile she used when pretending everything was under control. "Reservation under Lorraine. Same group code?" she would have said. And then the first crack. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the airline worker replies, a little too politely. "It looks like the reservation linked to this card has been canceled." I could hear the pause, the shift, the turn of her head toward Callista. Callista steps up, hands over her own card. Declined. I pictured Brian somewhere behind them, fumbling through his wallet, clueless but anxious to fix it, already dialing my number on instinct because, in our family, that's what always happened. Something broke, and I got called. Back in my apartment, I finally flipped the phone over. 3 missed calls, 2 from Brian, 1 from a blocked number. No voicemails, no texts, yet. I opened my tablet instead. I wasn't going to engage, but I was going to observe. Pulled up my cloud drive. There it was. Audio file still saved in the folder they didn't know I'd restructured. The file name was a jumble of default letters, but I knew exactly what it was. I pressed play and let the voices play out. It was from a Zoom call weeks ago, one I had muted while the kid was napping on the floor. I'd let him play on my laptop. I forgot it had recorded in the background. Vera's voice came through clearly. "Let's just let her sit this one out. She's too intense anyway." Callista laughed. "Honestly, it'll be more fun without her micromanaging everything." My breath didn't hitch. I didn't flinch. I had heard it before. But replaying it now, in the quiet of my apartment, it felt less like a stab and more like a confirmation. They had orchestrated my removal like a set change between acts. Quick, clean. With me watching from backstage, I opened a new document and began dropping in screenshots. Every confirmation, every cancellation notice, even the spa booking Callista had placed on my card. I dragged in the audio file, titled the document proof.pdf. I didn't plan to send it. Not yet. But it needed to exist. Let them reach their own conclusion. I'd only speak when it was worth hearing. The phone buzzed again. Brian. Declined. Then a text. "Mom says she needs you to fix this. Please just call her." I stared at the screen. The nerve of it almost made me laugh. Fix this? I had already done the one thing none of them expected. I stopped fixing. And in doing so, everything broke exactly where it needed to. I deleted the text. The kitchen still smelled faintly like last night's spaghetti. I stood at the counter, cutting a lemon, when I absent-mindedly opened Instagram. I wasn't expecting anything, maybe a friend's garden update, or another ad for some overpriced skincare serum I'd never buy. But instead, there it was. Callista. Her story was already playing, and I almost skipped past it until I caught the caption. "First vacay without the drama, just vibes." Her voice came through, chirpy as ever. She panned across a boutique where she and Mom were sipping wine in matching straw hats. Vera was giggling in the background, holding a pair of oversized sunglasses to her face like a bad disguise. I hit replay. Then I played it again. They weren't sorry, they were proud. They didn't mind cutting me out. They celebrated it. I locked my phone and took a breath. I wasn't going to spiral again, not this time. I cleaned up the lemon slices, wiped the counter, and walked to my laptop. Just before I could close the lid from the night before, I caught a notification from Facebook. Vera had posted, "Family getaway, couldn't ask for better company." I knew what that meant before I even saw the photo. But I clicked anyway. It was them, again, standing in front of the vineyard sign I'd chosen, wearing outfits I'd paid for. Callista was smiling at the camera with my suitcase beside her feet. My name tag removed, of course. Mom was clinging to her arm, and they all looked like they were on the cover of a brochure I hadn't been asked to proofread. They erased me, then wore me like an accessory. The tags? All Callista's influencer friends. I wasn't even listed. I scrolled through the comments. A few old family friends wrote things like, "Gorgeous ladies," and "Looks like the perfect trip." I knew the kind of validation that gave them. That fake internet glow that made betrayal feel like a curated blessing. I switched over to Instagram again. Another story from Callista. She was responding to a follower's comment, something vague like, "Hope y'all got some peace this time." Callista answered on video, "Honestly, we just wanted a little quiet this year. Some people thrive on conflict." I paused the story. Let it sit on the screen. She wasn't just removing me from the narrative, she was recasting me, turning me into the disruptor, the one they were better off without. I typed out a reply, something sharp, something true. Then I deleted it. Let them pretend I was the problem. I didn't owe them an audience or a rebuttal. Instead, I opened the folder on my desktop labeled Trip or Bows Originals. Inside was the file I'd been curating since the beginning of this unraveling. Every receipt, every email, every time-stamped cancellation. I opened my proof.pdf file, renamed it to something simpler, Drafts They Forgot. I began labeling each page, cleanly, methodically. Invoice, lodging, host name replaced. Reservation notes, edited without consent. Credit card screenshot, unauthorized charges. If they wanted to rewrite the story, they should at least know the editor kept every draft. I didn't plan to release it, not yet. But it existed, and it was organized. I leaned back in my chair and sipped the last of my coffee, now gone lukewarm. My phone buzzed again. Another post. This time from Vera. An official-looking graphic with a white border and cursive text, like something pulled from a family newsletter template. Special thanks to Callista, who made this whole trip possible. Your heart and effort brought us all together. I read it twice. They didn't just push me out. They awarded her the trophy for surviving the fire they'd started. I closed the laptop, didn't cry, didn't curse, just sat there in silence. Then I whispered, "Let's see how this story ends then." The kettle clicked off just as I finished typing the last line. I poured the tea, let it steep, and sat back down in front of my laptop, staring at the title at the top of the PDF. Proof, PDF. It was the quietest document I'd ever compiled. No bolded accusations, no dramatic summaries, just a meticulous arrangement of facts. Travel receipts, booking screenshots, credit card statements, and that oh-so-perfect audio clip from the Zoom call. It was a spreadsheet of everything they forgot I had. The email I drafted was simple, dry, intentional. Attached is the breakdown of all expenses for the Napa trip. Since I'm no longer included, the responsibility has shifted. No greeting, no salutation, no venom. I opened the recipient list. Vera, Callista, Brian. Then I added the BCC line. Dana, 2 cousins, Aunt Carla, and Vera's church friend, the one who always commented, "So blessed," under every photo they posted. Subject, financial reallocation, family Napa trip, attached proof.pdf. I hit send. The sound of the email swooshing out felt heavier than it should have. It wasn't revenge. It was accounting. Afterward, I leaned back in my chair and watched the stillness. Nothing exploded. No immediate calls or defensive follow-ups. The world didn't end. The silence that followed, though, that told me everything. Half an hour later, I opened my phone out of curiosity. The family always chat? Gone. I didn't leave it. They had removed me. No message, no explanation. Just an erasure so clean it could have come from a publicist. I exhaled once. Just once. That was all I needed. I stood, grabbed a thumb drive, and transferred the file into a folder on my desktop titled Boundary. It sat neatly between legal docs and recipes. A reminder that clarity belonged in more places than the kitchen. I took a sip of tea. Still hot, still bitter. I opened the group vacation calendar out of habit, then laughed to myself and deleted it. Next went the folder labeled Shared Family Photos Summer. I didn't open it. I didn't need to see myself cropped out again. I just dragged it to the trash. I paused on the proof folder, left it untouched. They edited me out of the trip. I revised my place in their system. That evening, while folding laundry and listening to an old true crime podcast, my phone buzzed. Another post. Vera again. A story with Callista beaming in front of a vineyard arch, arms around Vera and Brian. Captioned, "Grateful for family who always shows up." I rolled my eyes and nearly exited the app until I saw a comment pop up underneath, one I wasn't expecting. Wait, didn't Lorraine organize all this? Thought she paid for it? It was from an old college friend of mine, someone who remembered the planning posts I'd quietly shared months ago. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't cruel. She just asked a question no one wanted to answer. I closed the app, and for the first time in days, I smiled. Friday night settled in gently, the way most things do after the storm has passed, but before the damage is fully measured. I was halfway through a documentary I wasn't really watching, something about marine ecosystems, when my phone buzzed again. Not a text, not a call, a notification from Instagram. I hesitated before picking it up. I already knew what it was. A message from Dana. "Girl, what is happening? Did you really pay for all that?" I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I kept reading. Attached was a screenshot of Callista's latest post. Same old vineyard backdrop, same phony smiles. But this time, the comments were lit up like wildfire. Dozens of tags. Comments like, "Isn't this Lorraine's trip? Wait, didn't she pay for this? Y'all did her dirty." I could almost hear Callista's voice trying to talk her way out of it, probably blaming miscommunication or calling it a shared effort. That was her specialty, spinning theft into generosity. My phone rang next. Dad. Of course. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. I finally picked up on the third ring. "You didn't have to humiliate your mother like that." No hello. No question. Just an accusation. I stood up from the couch, walked slowly to the kitchen window, and stared out at nothing in particular. "I didn't humiliate her," I said calmly. "I just stopped covering for her." Franklin paused. His breathing was tight. "This is getting out of hand, Lorraine." "No," I replied. "This is what happens when you keep your hands in other people's pockets and pretend it's love." Click. I hung up first. Back on Facebook, I noticed an old friend from college had left a comment under Vera's latest photo dump. "Lorraine planned this. I saw the itinerary weeks ago." A small sentence, maybe 10 words, but it cracked open a dam. Likes began stacking beneath the comment. A few family members who'd remained silent for years, ones who always watched from the sidelines, started reacting. Quiet affirmations, nothing loud, but enough. Vera quietly edited her caption. Removed the "Callista made this happen" line. But it didn't matter. Screenshots live forever. Later that night, a message from Aunt Carla came through. "I always knew you were the one who held things together. I'm sorry it took this to say it." I didn't reply. Not because I didn't appreciate it, but because I didn't want to hold that role anymore. The fixer, the glue. I wasn't patching anyone's cracks now. The next morning, I printed a hard copy of proof PDF and slipped it into a folder labeled Tax Docs 2024. Not for revenge, not for drama, for record-keeping. Truth didn't need applause, it just needed a shelf. I opened a new folder on my desktop, named it Rewritten. Inside, I moved everything, every photo, every deleted file I recovered, every timestamp. When they rewrite your story, I whispered, make sure your receipts tell the uncut version. At noon, just as I was making lunch, another message arrived. This time from Callista. You didn't have to turn everyone against us. This was family. I stared at the words. I typed out a reply, then deleted it. I screenshotted the message and saved it to the new folder. Proof wasn't just about facts anymore. It was peace. Saturday evening moved slow, like the world had finally taken its foot off my neck. I hadn't touched my phone all day, and the silence felt intentional, earned. I didn't need noise. I didn't want distractions. I wanted space, and for once I had it. I was folding laundry when the first message came through. It was from Professor Myers, my ethics professor from undergrad. Didn't know you were the one behind all that. Class act, boundary setting looks good on you. That caught me off guard, not because he remembered me, but because someone like him even noticed. A few minutes later, another one, this time from Jenna, a coworker who normally kept to herself. You handled that whole mess better than any of us could have. I'd have snapped. Just saying. I chuckled, tossed a towel into the basket, and sat down. This was different. I wasn't the villain anymore, not the unstable one, not the bitter spinster. I was the one who walked away, with receipts. I opened my banking app to check on my statement before heading to bed. A recent transaction caught my eye. $612.38 at the retreat room. Spa services. I tapped for details. Timestamp. Thursday, 11:18 a.m. The same hours I was watching Callista's son scrape crayon wax onto my hardwood floor. She used my card. While I babysat her child, she used my time and my card, and still thought I'd never look. I called the bank, flagged the charge, and filed a fraud claim without flinching. I didn't even rehearse what I would say. I wasn't nervous or apologetic. I just did it. After the call, I pulled up a photo Dana had sent earlier that day. It was a framed picture sitting on Vera's mantel. I recognized the background, the vineyard gate I picked, the lighting I planned for. But I wasn't in it. Not cropped off to the side. Gone. Callista stood at the center, holding Vera's hand like the trip was her grand gesture. Brian stood awkwardly to the right, phone in hand, smiling like he knew nothing. Maybe he really didn't. But they all knew I wasn't there. They all smiled anyway. I saved the photo to a folder on my desktop and renamed it Legacy. Not because it held sentimental value, but because I needed a record of how easily people can rewrite you out of something they never built. That night, I walked down to the bookstore on Hawthorne. I hadn't been there in years. It smelled the same, like old paper and pine-scented candles that never sold. I picked up a leather-bound journal, simple, clean. When I got home, I opened to the first page and wrote, "They used to tell me family is forever. They never said mine had an expiration date." I closed it, set it on the shelf, and opened my contacts. Deleted Vera. Deleted Callista. Deleted Brian. Kept Aunt Carla and Dana. That was enough. It was late, close to midnight, when I finally turned off the lights. As I climbed into bed, my phone lit up again. Voicemail. Brian. I tapped it open and listened. "Hey, it's me. Tiff left. Said this trip exposed too much. Said she's not into family drama. I don't have anywhere to go. You know that, right?" There was a pause. The kind where you can tell someone's hoping for forgiveness without saying the word. I didn't finish the message. I deleted it. The weight they dropped on me, I've stopped carrying. Let them lift it now. The first thing I did Monday morning was clear the fridge. Not because it needed it, but because it felt like the right place to start. I threw out the fancy cheeses I'd bought for the welcome board they'd never see. Donated the unopened juice boxes I'd stocked for the nephew I was no longer responsible for. Everything else, I wiped clean, down to the sticky note I'd left myself. Pick up flowers day of? Next came the photo. It had been stuck to my fridge door for years, our last full family Christmas together. I used to glance at it each morning like a tether, a reminder that despite the tension, the mess, the silence between holidays, there was something there. But as I peeled the magnet off, I didn't feel sadness. I felt clarity. They made their choices. Now I'm making mine. With finality, not anger. I tossed the photo in the trash and didn't flinch. Mid-morning, I heard the buzz of my phone vibrating from across the room. I didn't move at first, let it run out. Then it rang again, voicemail. This time I checked. It was from Grandma June. Her voice was soft, worn. Lorraine, I saw what they did. I don't agree. I wanted you to know. You were right to walk away. You've always been the one they leaned on. Maybe it's time you leaned somewhere else. She didn't say more. She didn't have to. I didn't cry. But I sat with it, played it again. Then I saved the file and renamed it keep.mp3. It was the only family message I'd preserved in years. Later that day, I pulled up the travel app. No group bookings, no filtered photos, just a clean interface waiting for someone to say where they wanted to go. For the first time, I didn't check everyone's calendar first. I booked a solo train ride to Bar Harbor. First-class cabin, ocean view, no group chat, no itinerary sharing. Just me. And peace. The hotel I chose had no televisions, no room phones, and boasted intentional disconnection in their tagline. It was perfect. I tossed my cedar-scented sweater into a carry-on, packed 2 books, and slid my old leather notebook into the front pocket. I didn't need much else. For once, I didn't have to ask who'd be okay with it. I only had to ask if I wanted it. The next 2 days passed in quiet waves. No emails, no emergencies. I didn't even check my social apps until I was already halfway to the station. When I finally opened Instagram, I didn't even flinch. Vera had posted another filtered family shot. The usual soft edges, her face tilted just right, captioned with a short line, "We miss who you used to be." I stared at it, whispered back at the screen, "You miss who never said no." Then I saved the image to a folder I'd recently created. They'll try again. The train was boarding as I zipped my coat. It was early, the station mostly empty, the air crisp enough to feel like a clean page. I found my seat, window side, the kind with enough space to breathe. As we pulled out of Portland, the ocean began to stretch open, blue and indifferent. A little boy in the row ahead turned around and asked, "Are you traveling alone?" I smiled. "Yes," I said. And for once, it wasn't laced with sadness. But I've never felt more accompanied. It had been nearly a week since I arrived in Bar Harbor. The air tasted different here, cleaner maybe, or just absent of expectations. Each morning, I sipped my tea in silence on the porch of the Seaside Inn, watching the tide roll in like clockwork. No phone buzzing, no names popping up on my screen demanding explanations, fixes, or silence. Just the sea. And me. That morning, I opened my laptop for the first time since the train ride. The cursor blinked on the screen like it had missed me. I navigated to a blog I hadn't touched in years, one I called Things I Didn't Say. It had been my secret confession booth once, tucked in the farthest digital drawer. I uploaded the file. Not the full version, just the facts. Anonymized, stripped of names, but not of weight. Title: What happens when you're not invited to the vacation you paid for? The content spoke for itself. No accusations, no editorial tone, just a quiet, methodical timeline. Receipts, edited emails, screenshots of revised menus, quotes from conversations I hadn't been meant to hear. The audio clip included just one line. "Let her sit this one out. She's too intense anyway." I hit publish and closed the tab. By lunchtime, it was everywhere. Parenting groups, Reddit, financial blogs, even a Facebook thread titled Invisible Daughters Anonymous. Thousands of comments. I've been her. Thank you for putting this out there. This story is mine too. By mid-afternoon, I received an email from an editor at a lifestyle magazine. They wanted to interview me. anonymously, about boundaries and betrayal. I replied, "Thank you, no," then closed my laptop, but I smiled. After dinner, as I walked back from the shore, a young woman from the inn's front desk waved me down. "Ms. Holloway, this came for you." She handed me a creamy envelope. No return address, but I didn't need one. Inside was a wedding invitation, Callista and her new fiancé. The name stung, not because of him, but because I recognized it. An old friend I had dated years ago. The card read, "We know things have been rocky, but we'd love for you to be part of our day. One guest max." Not "we miss you," not "we're sorry," just a thinly veiled performance of reconciliation. They always want you there, just quiet, small, and unnoticeable. Back in my room, I reached into the drawer and pulled out the hotel stationery. I filled in the RSVP, checked, declined. No note, no added lines. Just one sticky note I folded inside the envelope. "Some seats aren't worth filling." I sealed it and dropped it off at the front desk before breakfast. Then I walked the rocky coastline alone. No music, no destination, no need to narrate it to anyone. And that felt like freedom. That night, back in my room, I opened a blank document. Title: The Family We Choose, a guide for boundaries that heal. I paused, hands hovering over the keyboard, then typed the first line. This isn't a story about losing your family. It's about realizing you already had.